In 65 AD, a beautiful young Roman freedman named Sporus caught the attention of Emperor Nero. Within weeks, he had been castrated, dressed in women's clothing, and forced to marry the emperor in a public ceremony. But this wasn't just imperial madness, it was the beginning of a systematic campaign to erase a human being's identity and transform him into a living replacement for a dead woman. Because sometimes the most horrifying torture isn't what's done to your body, but what's done to your very sense of self. Rome, 65 AD. The empire stretched from Britain to the Euphrates, its power seemingly limitless under Nero's rule. Yet, within the golden halls of the Domus Aurea Nero's palace, a darkness festered that would consume an innocent life. Sporus lived as a freedman in the imperial household, technically free but offering little protection from absolute power. Historical accounts describe him as possessing ethereal beauty, with delicate features that would prove both his distinction and his doom. The catalyst for Sporus' nightmare came with a woman's death. Poppaea Sabina, Nero's second wife and great love, died under mysterious circumstances. Some sources suggest Nero killed her in a rage, kicking her while pregnant. Others point to childbirth complications. Regardless of the truth, Poppaea's death left Nero devastated. The emperor's mourning took on an obsessive quality as he desperately sought ways to resurrect his beloved wife. It was during this period that fate delivered Sporus into Nero's sight. The emperor was struck by what he perceived as a startling resemblance to his dead wife. Ancient historians like Cassius Dio recorded that Nero became fixated on this resemblance, seeing in Sporus delicate features, an opportunity to reclaim what death had stolen. The emperor's grief-addled mind conceived a plan so audacious and horrific it would shock even jaded imperial Rome. The decision was swift and irreversible. Nero commanded that Sporus be castrated, permanently altering his body to better serve the emperor's twisted vision. This wasn't merely physical mutilation. It was complete erasure of Sporus' identity as a man, transforming him into something that existed solely for Nero's psychological comfort. The castration was performed by imperial physicians in the palaces, medical quarters, where screams could be muffled by marble walls and protests dismissed as insignificant complaints of property. Following the mutilation, Nero's plan revealed its full horror. The emperor announced his intention to marry Sporus in a public ceremony, treating the traumatized young man as a replacement for his beloved Poppaea. Sporus was given a new name, Sabina, after the dead empress, and dressed in the finest women's clothing, adorned with jewelry that had once belonged to Poppaea herself. The emperor's household was commanded to treat Sporus as the empress, addressing him with feminine titles and observing all protocols due to an imperial wife. The wedding ceremony was a spectacle of imperial madness played out before horrified Roman society. Sporus, barely recognizable in elaborate feminine attire, was led through Roman marriage rituals while Nero played the devoted bridegroom. Ancient sources describe the ceremony as both magnificent and deeply disturbing, all the pomp of a legitimate imperial wedding masking fundamental horror. Guests were forced to participate, offering congratulations and gifts, while privately recoiling from the grotesque theater. The aftermath saw Sporus paraded through Rome as Nero's empress, forced to appear at public events in his feminine guise, completely dependent on the emperor's protection. He had no choice but to play his assigned role, accompanying Nero to theaters, official functions, and private dinners where he was displayed like a precious object. The psychological toll of being forced to live as someone else entirely, someone who was dead and whose death may have been caused by the very man claiming to love her. Memory must have been devastating beyond measure. Roman citizens witnessed the strange sight of their emperor accompanied by what appeared to be a beautiful woman, but knowing the horrific truth. The sight of Sporus in empress regalia, bearing subtle signs of his true nature and surgical mutilation, served as a constant reminder of their emperor's fallen state. The relationship between Nero and Sporus was characterized by possessive obsession and complete powerlessness. Nero treated Sporus as both beloved wife and cherished possession, showering him with gifts while denying any agency beyond his role as Poppaea's replacement. The emperor would address Sporus by his dead wife's name, speak to him as if he were actually the woman he had lost, and expect him to respond in character. This psychological torture, the constant demand to embody someone else's identity, while his own was systematically erased, represented cruelty beyond physical harm. Writes that Nero took Sporus on tours of Greece, displaying him to foreign dignitaries as his empress. These journeys were particularly harrowing, as he was forced to maintain his feminine persona in unfamiliar settings, surrounded by strangers who either believed the charade or were forced to pretend they did. The emperor's treatment revealed his own psychological instability. Nero's love for Poppaea had been possessive and violent, and his relationship with her replacement carried the same dangerous intensity. He would rage if Sporus failed to perfectly embody his dead wife's memory, punishing him for failings that existed only in Nero's disturbed imagination. Yet Nero could also be tender and generous. Lavishing expensive gifts and treating Sporus with affection, he had once shown Poppaea. This cycle of abuse and reward must have been psychologically devastating. Servants and courtiers were forced to navigate complex etiquette of addressing Sporus as empress while knowing the truth. They witnessed daily humiliations, the constant need to maintain feminine persona, and the psychological toll it took. All were complicit in maintaining the elaborate lie that had become Nero's emotional foundation. The strain was evident in every aspect of Sporus' daily life. He was required to wear women's clothing constantly, speak appropriately for an empress, and participate in activities reinforcing his assigned identity. The surgical mutilation made certain aspects easier to maintain, but served as a constant physical reminder of what had been taken from him. As Nero's reign progressed, political tensions reached breaking point. The emperor's theatrical pursuits, neglect of duties, and erratic behavior had alienated supporters and emboldened enemies. Military commanders questioned loyalty to an emperor, more interested in playing dress-up with a castrated boy than governing. The sight of Sporus, draped in imperial regalia, became a symbol of everything wrong with Nero's leadership. In 68 AD, the political situation collapsed entirely. The Praetorian Guard, Senate, and provincial governors declared opposition to Nero's rule. Faced with universal rejection and certainty of painful death if captured, Nero fled Rome with loyal supporters, including Sporus. The young man found himself bound to a falling emperor. His survival depended on the whims of someone who had already proven capable of any cruelty. Nero's final days were marked by chaos and terror as news of rebellions reached the imperial party. The emperor's behavior became even more erratic, speaking alternately of grand escape plans and theatrical final performances. Throughout this period, Sporus remained by his side, still dressed in feminine attire, still playing the devoted empress as the empire crumbled. When Nero finally committed suicide in June 68 AD, Sporus was left to face an uncertain future. Emperor's death didn't bring freedom. It marked a new phase of nightmare. As one of the most visible symbols of Nero's reign, Sporus represented both a living reminder of imperial excess and a potentially valuable political asset. Various factions competing for power would each have plans for the young man forced to play empress. The immediate aftermath saw Sporus passed from one powerful figure to another, treated as prize or trophy rather than a human being with desires and agency. Under the new emperor Galba, Sporus' situation remained precarious and humiliating. Galba took possession of Sporus along with other remnants of Nero's household, not as rescue or liberation, but as another transaction where Sporus had no voice. New emperor, while lacking Nero's theatrical obsessions, still saw value in possessing this living reminder of his predecessor's reign. Neither fully male nor female, neither free nor enslaved, neither honored nor completely discarded, must have been psychologically devastating for someone who had already endured years of identity destruction. The political instability of the Year of the Four Emperors meant Sporus' fate remained uncertain. He had become imperial inheritance, passed from ruler to ruler like valuable furniture. Emperor Otho, who briefly held power, reportedly treated Sporus with relative kindness, perhaps recognizing something of his own precarious position. However, Otho's reign lasted only months before he too was defeated and forced to commit suicide. It was under Emperor Vitellius that Sporus' situation reached its final, most degrading phase. Vitellius decided that Sporus would provide entertainment for Roman masses. Planning to force him to appear in the arena, as a participant in a grotesque reenactment of the rape of Persephone. The mythological scene of a maiden's abduction and violation. This plan represented ultimate degradation. Sporus would be forced to play a woman being sexually assaulted for thousands of spectators' amusement. After years of forced feminization, identity erasure, and sexual exploitation, this prospect of public violation as entertainment proved to be more than Sporus could bear. Asterisk, faced with the prospect of being violated in public as entertainment for the Roman mob, Sporus chose death rather than endure this ultimate degradation. After years of systematic dehumanization, the idea of public sexual assault became the breaking point that his shattered psyche could not cross. Ancient sources record that Sporus took his own life before Vitellius could carry out his cruel plan. In his final act, Sporus reclaimed the one thing that had been denied him throughout his ordeal: the power to make his own choice about his fate. His suicide marked the end of one of the most disturbing episodes in Roman imperial history. His death was not mourned by the public, nor seen as significant politically. He had been reduced to such dehumanization that his passing was noted, primarily as minor inconvenience to Vitellius's entertainment plans. Yet, in choosing death over further degradation, Sporus demonstrated courage and dignity that had been systematically denied him. His final act was both rejection of the role he had been forced to play and assertion of his fundamental humanity. The story of Sporus forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about powers, nature, and human capacity for both cruelty and survival. In a world where absolute authority could transform a free young man into a living doll, where identity itself could be surgically and psychologically altered to serve madman's whims, we see reflected the darkest possibilities of unchecked power. Tragedy was not merely personal, but symptomatic of a system that valued human beings only insofar as they could serve those with ultimate authority. The historical legacy serves as a reminder that behind grand narratives of empire lie countless individual tragedies of people powerless to resist the forces shaping their lives. Modern readers might ask how such cruelty was possible, how society could tolerate such systematic dehumanization. Yet Sporus' story also demonstrates remarkable resilience of human spirit, the ability to endure unimaginable suffering while maintaining some core sense of self. His final choice, tragic as it was, represented victory of sorts, a refusal to be completely broken, even by forces capable of rewriting reality itself. In remembering Sporus, we honor not only his suffering, but his ultimate act of defiance against those who sought to erase his humanity entirely.